Here on Wednesday, June 28th, 2017 at 6:30. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, I'd like to do some introductions. We'll start with Mr. May and work your way around the table, please.
Hi, Robert May, member of the advisory committee.
Beverly Bartolomeo, a lifelong resident, member of the advisory committee.
Jeffrey Bennett, Templeton Advisory Committee.
Wilfred Spring Advisory Committee.
Julie Farrell, Advisory Committee.
Paul Grubb Advisory Committee.
Darlene Bulow, new member of the Advisory Committee.
I'm Carter Terenzini, the interim town administrator.
Diane Haley Brooks, Selectwoman.
Doug Morrison, Select Board Member.
John Caplis, Selectman.
Cameron Ford, Selectman.
Julie Richards, Selectman.
Lily Young, Assistant to the Town Administrator.
Deb Wagner, Supervisor, Bureau of Accounts in the Springfield office.
Mary Jane Handy, Director of Accounts, Division of Local Services.
Sean Cronin, I head up the Division of Local Services.
Zach Blake, Chief of Technical Assistance for the Division of Local Services.
Great. Thank both boards. Thank you for coming, Advisory Committee, and obviously the DLS. We really appreciate this opportunity. So I'll hand it off to one of you. Going to start off?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
I'll start off and then kick it over
Great.
to MJ. So as I said, my name's Sean Cronin. I've been at Division of Local Services now for just over 2.5 years, and prior to that, I spent 17 years in local government. So when I go to places talking about local government, I've been there. I've been in front of the advisory committee many nights in my life, and spent many late nights with boards of selectmen. So certainly appreciate all you do. There's 351 of you municipalities doing, trying to do the right thing, and I really appreciate that. And what I really focused on in the town I worked in was on budget and finance. So that's kind of my sweet spot. With that background, obviously I'm a pretty big advocate for local government. To me, that's where, all the core services come from, whether it's police, fire, education, public works, whatever it might be. And without prudent financial management, actually delivering those services is impossible. And as you know, if you don't deliver those services in a way that the taxpayers expect and deserve, then your public trust will start to dissipate. And once that happens, your ability to stop the downward spiral gets tougher and tougher. So really, in my opinion, everything starts with finance and financial management. As I'm sure you know, Division of Local Services, by statute, we're a regulatory body. We review your property tax, your property valuations as part of tax rate setting process. We approve your tax rate, we certify free cash, new growth, all those types of things. But we're also a...
Mr. Cronin?
Yes.
Just excuse me for 1 second. I would be remiss. I want to recognize Senator Goby for being here as well. Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate the support the state's doing for us. Is Ms. Whipsley here as well?
She's unable to be here. Her father's not feeling well.
Understood. Thank you so much. Again, Senator Goby, thank you for being here. Continue, Mr. Cronin. I apologize.
No problem. No. But we also provide a lot of technical assistance, and I think you know Zach Blake now, who heads up our Technical Assistance Bureau. We do a lot of administrative, statutory oversight, but to me, that's just a part of our mission. If you look at what our overarching mission is, if you go to our website and you look at it, it's to help Massachusetts cities and towns achieve sound and efficient fiscal management. And our motto is actually supporting a commonwealth of communities. So, don't really view us as the big bad state. We have a regulatory function, but since I've been there, my real push has been to make Division of Local Services a lot there to help a lot more than I think in the past, and to be proactive rather than reactive, which is why I think you're seeing us here tonight. So my hope is that by the end of the presentations tonight, that the board, the two boards, and the public in general will fully comprehend both the seriousness of the financial issues facing the town, but also understand the resources that are available to you, both potentially monetarily through different state programs, but then also staff like Zach and MJ's teams. So as you are aware, as well as anybody, the financial challenges that you're facing are pretty significant. This is immediately evidenced by the fact that the audited financial statements cannot be completed for fiscals 13 through fiscal 16. The ultimate completion of these audits has clarified the town's ongoing financial weaknesses. MJ is going to go through all that, and I'm really going to stick to some higher level comments. But I think it's pretty clear that maintaining accurate books is a pretty basic and fundamental component of municipal finance. So when a community can't even achieve that's a pretty significant alarm bell right there. That's a lot of cause for concern there. So shifting to management, again, with my background, what I like to tend to do is kind of look at it a little bit higher level. And if you look at what's gone on, I think it's pretty clear that you lack of stability and continuity in both your town administrator position and a number of your key financial management positions. Since 2002, you've had 3 individuals serve as interim town administrators. And I think if, whatever the organization is, if you don't have a consistent, strong, centralized leadership, that's going to impact your ability to do anything. And in this case, we're talking about primarily the financial operations. And then in your finance positions, I believe there's been 4 accountants and 3 treasurers since 2012 alone. So when you have this kind of transient and inconsistent approach to your management, that's going to negatively impact your finances. And again, that's what MJ is really going to dive into in a couple minutes. I had a similar conversation when I actually had first started in neighboring Winchendon. The state was actively in there. There was there was deficit financing approved for the town. So we went in there to talk about the financial challenges that they faced. And one of the things that I highlighted, I think, I'm actually going to say the same exact things that I said then. I got the exact words that I used, talking about how important the town manager position was there, because they were going through a similar situation where they couldn't get a permanent town manager after a period of time. And what I said then was the first step, and one that can be acted upon immediately, is for the Board of Selectmen to address the position of town manager. I know that there is currently an acting town manager, but an experienced, qualified professional with a strong financial skill set must be brought on board to manage the day-to-day operations and direct the long-term financial management of the town. You can take those exact words and bring them right here today. So whether it's a town administrator or a town manager, whatever the title is, what's important about that is you have one person who, amongst a whole bunch of other duties he or she is responsible for, they're the person that is ultimately responsible, should ultimately be responsible for the overall financial management of the community. He or she might not be the accountant or the collector treasurer, but at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to make sure that things are coordinated properly, through the budget process, working with the finance team to make sure that best practices are developed, implemented, and followed year after year, and actually modified to meet different periods in time. So really, at the end of the day, they're the one who should be held accountable for that. And when they do a good job, they should be recognized. If they don't, they should be held accountable for it. So to that end, I fully support what the 2 towns talked about last night. MJ shared it with me in the local paper. Talking about a shared town and manager, I think, makes a heck of a lot of sense for both of the communities right now. We recently played a significant role in helping Lee and Lennox out in Western Mass through it wasn't so much a financial challenge, but they have an issue like most communities are going through, where there's a large number of pending retirements, and over the next few years, that's just going to accelerate, and finding qualified people to fill those roles is getting more challenging. So they were actively quite proactive and said, we've got 2 towns here, one town manager's leaving, can we make this happen? And Zach and his team and others from DLS went out there and played a very significant role in that. And effective July 1, Lee and Lennox have 1 town manager. So we think it's the first one in the state that actually has a formal shared, not part-time here and part-time there, but the town administrator or town manager for those 2 towns. So I really hope that you consider that, and I want to let you know that we have a lot of ability to help you through those types of discussions, whether it's Zach and his team, or MJ, her team, or others. We have a legal shop too that can help. It's no cost. So if you need any help with that, please give us a call, and we can certainly help you through that. just to close, the financial challenges before you are significant, and I don't want to understate that. The actions that were taken in the past and the past practices that led you to where you are today, those have to be abandoned and replaced with sound policies and best practices that we try to help communities implement. So from a political, operational, and management and a managerial standpoint, obviously it's not going to be easy, but I think, hope you recognize that it's necessary to do that. The time to change is now and the stakes are high, but like I said a couple times, we're actually here to help. We're not sitting here hovering over you saying you got to do this or we're not going to approve your tax rate. We're sitting here saying we want to work with you so that things improve. So thank you for having us here tonight. I'll answer any questions now, or you can wait to have MJ go through her part. But if you take away anything from my comments, it's really we're here to help, and especially around the conversation of a shared town manager, because I think it makes a lot of sense for the two towns to have that conversation. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks, Sean. Deb, Mary?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Select Board for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. My purpose tonight is to discuss with you the Department of Revenue's Division of Local Services ongoing concerns regarding the condition of the town's financial records and practices. It's important that we have this discussion since you ultimately are responsible for the well-being of the town. Over the last few years, the Division of Local Services had some concerns stemming mainly from the lack of reconciliations and inability to determine the accuracy of balance sheets. During that time, we communicated our concerns to the town verbally and through numerous emails and have offered our assistance to rectify the situation. Unfortunately, the town has neither requested our assistance nor addressed our concerns until recently. On April 13th of this year, staff from the Division of Local Services had the opportunity to meet with the town's interim town administrator, the town accountant, the financial advisor, and the outside auditor, Roselli Clark and Associates, to discuss the fiscal year 2013, 14, 15, and 16 financial audits which were recently completed. Based on that meeting, I sent a letter to the board on May 23rd that stated some major concerns on the condition of the financial records and cited some specific observations. I'd like to take the opportunity now to address the issues that were raised in my letter in greater detail, and I'm just going to highlight what we talked about. As Sean said, the town has been struggling for continuity in its town administrator and finance positions. The lack of consistent, strong central leadership has severely impacted the town's ability to financially operate at an optimal level. Again, as Sean mentioned, staff turnover has been high in critical financial positions. There were 4 accountants and 3 treasurer collectors in 5 years since 2012. This transient form of government in Templeton has substantially contributed to the severe financial consequences outlined in my letter. Lacking formal documented policies and procedures and control, the town tends to submit annual reports to the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, much later than is normal, thereby risking the timely receipt of local aid payments. Timely and accurate record submittals of required documents have been enormously challenging for this town. That includes the tax recaps, the DE1, which is the debt exclusion, balance sheets, and Schedule A. The last time the Bureau of Accounts certified Templeton's free cash was for fiscal year 2013 in the amount of a negative $27,000. During fiscal year 13, the town did a computer conversion of its general ledger, which took place for some reason during the fiscal year. The Bureau of Accounts was not sure if the accounts rolled over from one computer system to the other, and basic accounting procedures were not being performed, including reconciliations of key general ledger accounts to supporting documentations, a procedure that is critical to ensuring general ledger accuracy. In the early spring of 2014, Templeton had a budget deficit of $505,000. This impacted cash flow. the town was forced to enact draconian budget cuts and spending freezes, including shutting down of non-essential services through the end of the fiscal year. In 2015, the town has hired a new accountant to replace the departing accounting consultant. This individual determined relatively quickly that the financial records were in disarray. Although possessing no prior municipal experience, she reconstructed all the uncompleted fiscal years and provided supporting documents to the auditors so they could complete their work. Kelly, thank you very much. In 2015, the Mass School Building Authority voted to move into schematic design options for replacing the Templeton Center School and the Baldwinville Elementary School, which are part of the Narragansett Regional School District, with a new school to serve kindergarten through grade 5. Voters approved this at town meeting in November 2015. There have been 2 citizen petitions, to rescind the November 2015 school building vote, but the last motion was defeated. As of 2017, the town has expended funds on the major capital project without a borrowing. This resulted in a $1.3 million deficit in project funds. The Bureau of Accounts has advised the town to refrain from proceeding with construction, including awaiting any construction bids or other further spending until such time that the town can be guaranteed it can borrow its entire share of the project, approximately $20 million. A project of this magnitude is very complicated to manage. It involves several short-term, multi-million-dollar borrowings and timely submissions of reimbursement requests to MSBA. I know this personally because I was school business manager prior to coming to DOR at Athol Royalston, and they just completed their project. We strongly recommend the town engage a consultant familiar with Massachusetts school building projects to assist in any further project administration and financial management. Currently, the town does not have a bond rating. We expect a bond rating will be reviewed after the free cash is certified. That was from the financial advisors today. In 2014, Moody's Investment Service withdrew its bond rating due to insufficient information. You didn't have audits for 4 years. The bond ratings withdrew their bond ratings. Major projects are impossible to fund from taxation, all in 1 year. Thus, the town must have the ability to borrow. After obtaining audited financial statements for fiscal year 13 and 16, the town was successful in bidding a bond anticipation note for the school project in May of 2017. The BOA has currently requested additional supporting documentation from the town accountant for the purpose of certifying fiscal year 2016 free cash. Since this was not received, because they were still waiting for the audits, free cash was not available for appropriation at your most recent town meeting in May. After discussions with DLS, the town hired Roselli, Clark & Associates to help reconstruct these financial to reconstruct its financial records and ultimately complete the fiscal year 13 through 16 audits. The firm issued a separate management report for each financial year on March 23, 2017, along with a 31-page management letter. An exit conference took place on April 25th. Roselli Clark Associates noted that by the end of 2015, the town had a negative undesignated fund balance of $836,000 in the general fund, which was by the close of fiscal year 16. It was also reduced to $673,000. The firm noted many years with excessive expenditures over appropriations, meaning you spent more than you were budgeted, and deficits in multiple funds, including the general fund, school capital project, and combined non-major funds. Per the audit report, the town anticipates funding these deficits through available revenues, grant funds, or bond proceeds in future years. The audit also noted that through fiscal year 2016, there was $720,000 of deficits related to the school building project. Of this total, $450,000 related to debt service associated with the school feasibility study, which is a debt-excluded project. $87,000 related to the debt payments not approved at town meeting. However, since this debt was paid from the sale of real property, it is our opinion that it is not necessary to obtain town meeting authorization, but it would be more transparent if you did. The remaining $212,000 of the deficit should be raised from free cash, or if not available, from the fiscal year 2018 budget cuts. Due to discrepancies in accounting records and the lack of budget monitoring, the town was not aware of its appropriation balances, which has led to deficits in the last four fiscal years. Roselli Clark reported year-end appropriation deficits in the tune of $750,000, which needs to be raised in the fiscal year 2018 tax recap. The town failed to satisfy federal single audit deadlines for fiscal year 13 and 14 and is now considered a high-risk auditee under the federal uniform guidance and is not eligible to apply for CDBG funds for subsequent years. We continue to have significant concerns about Templeton's fiscal condition and will therefore closely monitor the financial situation of the town, including the following actions, and this was spelled out in the letter. The Bureau of Accounts has requested the fiscal year 2018 budget to verify it was developed within the framework of a sound long-range financial plan and reasonable revenue projections. I know Deb met with both the town accountant and the interim town administrator.
Along with Tony Roselli as well, to review.
With the auditor. The BOA will require documentation proving monthly reconciliations of key general ledger account balances. This is essential to maintain controls and ensure checks and balances are in place. I know Kelly is working with Deb on this. BOA will monitor the progress of the 2017 year-end close. The Bureau of Accounts also requires the town to submit to the Division of Local Services a 2017 audit and a pro forma tax recap prior to certification of free cash for July 1st, 2017, and approval of the fiscal year 2018 tax rate recap. Without these, BOA will not approve the 18 tax rate. We also recommend the town develop a comprehensive set of policies and procedures to effectively safeguard its asset and better assure its financial and operating objectives are met. Zach and his Technical Assistance Bureau can help develop those policies. Another recommendation is to consider depositing funds in local banks rather than strictly the Mass Municipal Depository Trust to increase accessibility for the town to the bond market. Balancing the town's fiscal year 19 budget with an adequate level of services will be a significant challenge. Therefore, options such as changes in health insurance benefits and shared services will need to be considered like they were last night. Many DLS and auditor recommendations can only be implemented if there is sufficient determination and cooperation of the local government. We expect to see progress in our implementation of our recommendation. DLS has documented long-time financial management and internal control shortcomings, including, as I mentioned before, the lack of timely reconciliations, delay in closing financial books, and the inability to provide adequate documentation of free cash certification for the past 3 fiscal years. As a result of the factors detailed above, this is a deep concern regarding the town's ability to resolve and move past these significant financial concerns. Historically, we have found that Templeton's financial management operations are hindered by a lack of oversight and accountability by the Select Board and high turnover in critical financial positions. The result is a community that struggles to both address ongoing financial challenges and carry out its daily responsibilities. However, based on the meeting last night and the fact that the town hired a new accountant, although new to municipal government, this will provide the opportunity for Templeton to move forward in a positive direction. My testimony today is to serve as a wake-up call that the financial condition of Templeton is in need of immediate and dutiful attention. The Division of Local Services remains committed to working collaboratively with you during this time. We have previously offered guidance and assistance. Those offers have been rebuffed. At this time, we highly encourage you to avail yourself of our support, expertise, and recommendations. In closing, the financial conditions facing the town are significant and require immediate attention. In my role as Director of Accounts, I have laid out this information out multiple times, and it's my sincere hope that the town understands the gravity of the situation and also takes steps necessary to rectify them. DLS stands ready to help Templeton meet these challenges, but there must be demonstration of commitment from the town's leadership. Thank you for providing me the time to meet with you tonight, and I'm here for any questions.
Thanks, Mary. That was great. You have a question, Ms.?
Yeah.
Male?
Deb Wagner, you've been with Templeton for a long time.
Yep.
The only thing I don't understand is why on earth did anyone let our town go so long without doing an audit? If we had only gone 2 years, it would have been so much easier, and we could have got on track quicker. But going this long, it's really, really kind of like swimming across a pond with a rock on your head.
I can tell you that over and over again, when these situations were arising and when I was aware that there were severe challenges in the accounting department and progress was not being made, I had intensive and repeated conversations with, at the time, acting Administrator Markle about getting an accounting consultant into the town to do real and meaningful reconstruction of the town's accounting records. And that did not happen.
In 2003 and in 2004, we were in the same spot we're in right now. We have done this 3 times at least.
Okay, so I'm not sure about 2003 and 2004. I know that Scott Sawyer was here through 2011. And through that point in time, I never had any problem getting anything that I needed.
We lost $160,000 worth of money in grants back then.
I can't speak to
No.
the loss of grant revenue.
I'm too old for this. I want this to get cleared up.
I got it, Beverly, thank you so much. Yeah,
You know?
yes.
It's
Karen.
new.
So concerning the issues that we have in town, and I know you guys are really here to help work with us. One of the bigger challenges that we face as a community, especially, I mean, there's lack of financial experience on a lot of the select board, is kind of developing policies and procedures regarding financial situations. I mean, as a Board of Selectmen, sometimes, I mean, with the single audit deadlines, I mean, when we're coming up with with the closing of the books and things like that, we have the lack of the know-how of municipal finance, because that kind of comes to a higher level when you're dealing with a lot of the accounting policies and procedures. So I know one of that's remediated with a town accountant who is, really dedicated to the job, and it also comes down to the town manager or the town administrator. What kind of services can you offer the Board of Selectmen for information on kind of getting up to date with municipal finance and the auditing and the accounting procedures?
So I can respond to that. So over the last year, we've been deeply involved in the Community Compact Cabinet project sponsored by the Lieutenant Governor. And in doing so, we've delivered financial practices to over 50 cities and towns across Massachusetts. And so we have pretty deep experience now across the state in developing a core set of financial management policies. I would be committed to you to offer our services in developing, working with you and the advisory committee to develop those policies. I would also suggest, in terms of the new finance officials, that they reach out to their professional associations, that I would encourage them to find mentors in other communities that can offer support in and around financial management. I know Deb is available and ready to help. We have in the past, in other communities, provided basic budget forecasting, capital planning type of workshops for communities where we sit around a table and discuss what are the processes for a community to go through as far as best practices are concerned. All of this is available to you folks.
And the last thing that Zach specifically mentioned, the budget workshop, is something that was offered to the town in the past. And like he said,
Right.
we'll come in, we'll go through how you put your budget together, and we'll explain, the revenue sources, what we look at when you submit your recap to us, and then how that all comes together with your evaluations to end up with a tax rate. So other towns have found that very helpful.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
just so that the DLS and DOR are aware, is in 2013, the advisory board recommended a financial policy to the Board of Selectmen. That same year, that Board of Selectmen adopted it as goals rather than a policy. Within that same year, we ended up recommending a stabilization fund policy. None of these have been really adopted per se in the past, when us working as the finance advisory with the past selectmen. So I just want to point out that there was some documentation out there, but it was never truly embraced and adopted by any set of selectmen, for whatever reason. And it's like, and you're absolutely right, there has been a lot of transition. In fact, there is probably more transition than what you realize within the Treasury. There was a treasurer in 13, there was a treasurer in 14, there was an interim person in the meantime while we were looking for a treasurer that was certified as a collector and a treasurer. Stood in for a while we ended up going out and getting a treasurer. And in fact, this particular committee advised the community to take and adopt a treasurer-collector position, which the town did in 15. So we have been actively trying to end up doing things from an advisory role. So I just want to make that clear, that there's been some movement, at least from the advisory or finance committee, to take and end up doing some things.
Thanks, Will. Yes, Julie.
I had a few questions, and I believe they're addressed to MJ because it comes from the letter that you sent. My questions are, how do we move forward? How do we get free cash certified? What are the steps that Templeton needs to take to get free cash certified?
Sure.
Or
So
defer that to- okay.
when we had the meeting in Worcester with Roselli Clark and the people here and your, Carter and Kelly, we set out sort of a timeline for that to happen. There's gonna be a pretty quick close of fiscal year 2017. And then Tony will come in and perform the audit, at which point the balance sheet will be submitted to us. There is I believe Carter developed a formal timeline for this even. So, we do have all those ducks in a row, at which point we can turn around the balance sheet with the free cash certification pretty quickly, and then you'll be able to set your tax rate. So we don't anticipate a problem.
Okay.
So we're on schedule time
Yeah.
at this point. That's
Yeah,
it?
there is a
Thank you.
definite time frame and timeline in place.
Do we have any, that was never shared with the advisory committee? So,
I'm sure Carter will
We can,
forward that
we
to you.
we can send that
Yeah.
along,
Alright.
sure.
we're looking to be in good shape to
Yeah.
get certified, free cash certified for a fall special town meeting. Okay.
And there is a plan in place to cover the deficits that were outlined as a result of the fiscal year 16, the most recent audit. So some of it will be covered to the extent that it involved the debt exclusion, will be covered through the debt exclusion because it was not debt excluded and resulted in a deficit, so you can do that now. A couple $100,000 will be covered using free cash, and the $87,000 was related to the proceeds from the sale of Baldwinville Road. But, so that $87,000, even though there was no formal vote for an appropriation to cover that debt, properly, the proceeds of the sale of that property were used to pay that debt. So that, although requires if you choose to do it for transparency's sake, it requires a town meeting vote. Like I said, at your option, but really does not require an action. And that portion of it is covered.
All right, so we anticipate the $212,000 deficit will be coming out of free cash?
I think that's the plan. I mean, certainly
Okay.
all of this is at your own discretion, but that is the primary discussion at this point.
And that is the
That's the
plan.
And the $748,000 will be made up?
Those are the various components of that.
Okay.
400 and something thousand relates to the deficit, debt exclusion, school feasibility study.
Mhm.
So that will be covered through taxation and the debt exclusion. The 212,000 approximately will be covered by free cash, and the 87,000 is already taken
Is a
care of.
wash,
Yeah,
okay.
so that totals the whole amount of the deficits.
All right. Will we have the tax rate set on time?
Absolutely. To
Okay.
the extent that everything, comes into
Falls into
us
place.
according to the plan in place, absolutely.
Okay.
And this isn't, where we have towns that have special legislation or have this similar kind of time frame, and we keep a close tab on the steps involved in the process to get the free cash certified and the tax rate set.
Okay. The school building project, there was just a $5 million short-term ban taken out for that. But the recommendation in the letter is that nothing will happen to that until we can get a bond rating and go out for long-term borrowing,
Well,
the 20 million?
you proved, it's all right.
Okay.
You proved that by selling the $5 million ban,
Mhm.
you now have proved that you can access the market. Without the audits, you could not,
Okay.
okay? So that now with having additional audits, when your free cash is certified,
Mhm.
the financial advisor, they're going to go through and submit for a bond rating,
Okay,
okay? So
So-
that should go through and.
all right. So the timeline for doing that, because that project has been waiting for a long time.
That is on the Gantt chart that we will send you. It shows the interrelationship of closing the year, getting the audit done, getting everything in for a free cash certification so that we can prepare the plan of the several warrant articles that we will need to clean up the various deficits, which then can become part of the credit rating.
Right.
With credit rating in hand, we can then be going through the process of obtaining the debt and bidding the project out. It does all need to come together, but I think it does flow. And as of today, I wouldn't see anything that has changed that, and I think that'll make a little more sense when you see the Gantt chart.
So that project is basically on hold until we
It's
go.
on the
above?
Gantt chart.
There's a little bit of redesign that had to be done because of the delay. But there would be no entering into construction contracts without an assured access to the 20-plus millions of dollars that are needed to cover that construction contract.
And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the bid for the bids and the sub-bids for the project were not going out till later in the fall, anyway, if I remember.
But we still
Mr.
have.
Foney, Ms. Rayan?
That was my understanding, that
Yeah.
the 5 million went through first, and then things would follow as Carter just said. So it is moving as those steps are taken.
Just if I can add one, on the point of borrowing, and it was mentioned earlier, you really need to have somebody on board who understands the complexities of borrowing money, short-term, long-term, capital projects, OPM. I mean, you need to have somebody on board who understands how all this all hangs together. Because you're not just going to, you're gonna have to borrow money up front and then wait for MSBA reimbursement, so there's a whole timing component to that. So don't just think it's 20 million bucks that you're gonna be going and issue.
Right.
You know, short-term it's gonna be more, and then you'll finally issue long-term debt at some point, once you know what the exact amount is, so it's very complicated. I mean, I lived through 3 of them in the town I worked for. It's, you know, you gotta have somebody who understands that.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yes, Kelly.
To address that, the school has offered, Tammy Collar was the treasurer collector here, for a number of years. She's very familiar with the borrowing process and all of that. They have volunteered her services to assist and help with MSBA reimbursements and that sort of processing. So, you know, we will have that resource to be able to help with that project. And I just wanna clarify, cause I understand Julie's question, but I'm not sure that it was answered the way she meant it. We still have bills that are coming in for the design, so it's not like the 5 million has come in and is sitting there. We still have bills coming in for them that they're working on, you know, because they have to figure out now, when we go out to bid for this project, have things changed? Is there things, because it's been sitting on the shelf for a year? You know, has there been things with the contracts that, or, you know, the bidding and all of that? Have they changed? So they are still getting paid in the process for that and being paid out of the bond proceeds, the 5 million that we have.
There were some code changes also, from what I understood. There were
right.
the code changes, building code changes that have to be
So
addressed.
I just wanna make sure that that's clear, that that money didn't come in and it's just sitting there. There are bills being paid out of it.
And a chunk of it was to cover the
Yeah.
deficit.
The millions,
Yeah, it's millions.
something.
So they spent money without having the money.
Right.
Now you
Right.
borrowed a short-term to fill in the hole.
Right, I just don't want
Yeah.
that to happen again. I think, when you talked about reconciliations and documents, would that include like budget to actuals? We've been having a difficult time, I'll speak for myself as a committee, getting, budget to actuals so that we know what money are in what accounts. Right now, we're in the transfer process, to try to close out 17. Is that one of the things that you're going to be looking at?
Certainly that's one of the things we look at. So I would imagine now with Kelly here that you're getting monthly budget to actual reports.
We haven't done one for June yet because we're
Okay.
trying to figure out.
June's not
Yeah.
over, so I wouldn't expect that you would have one.
Right.
So, that would be one of the things, but also equally important is accounts receivable reconciliations between the accountant and the treasurer collector, and cash reconciliations between the accountant and the treasurer collector. And that's something that's very important in the role of the town administrator in a town like this where you don't have a finance director, but to ensure that those reconciliations are being done on a very timely basis. So that's important, an important monitoring tool, kind of a higher level control that really, it's, in some towns, a bigger town would have a finance director making sure those are happening, but really is incumbent upon the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen to follow up on making sure those kinds of things are happening.
And without that, those budget to actual reports are useless.
Right,
It's
right.
meaningless, and so that's where it all starts.
Yes, Kelly.
And just so that everyone knows, we are completely reconciled with cash through April. We're in the process of finishing up May, and then the accounts receivable, it was in balance, but we've had to do, a correcting of takings with American Tissue back to 2002. So I'm in the process now with the collector working on reconciling, you know, what was reversed and what's been the taking again and all of that. So, but we, up to that point, we balanced with the accounts receivable.
Right.
Awesome job.
And that's what you wanna see happening on a monthly basis and be asking if it's happening.
That makes sense.
And
Yes,
just,
sir.
just so you, Mary Jane and Deb will know, what the auditor commented upon the reconciliation of sewer receivables as well, and Chairman and I went down, met with the Sewer Commission, and then Kelly and I met with one of their members and have developed a monthly process that we hope they will hold to, which will allow us, because they do their own collections down at the sewer department. So I think that we will close out year-end in good shape. And then it's a matter of keeping it on track.
Correct.
Yes, Julie?
I just had one more question. We recently learned that the number given to us for stabilization has changed. It went from 142,000 to 95,000 in regular stabilization, and there were two others. There's a capital stabilization and a Pajari, so the total was $106,000, and we don't really have an explanation of what happened.
I wouldn't have an explanation.
Okay.
Nope.
Yes, Kelly, please.
At the time that the 145 number was given, we had no idea in the balance sheet where we were, if transfers had been made, if anything was correct. So that balance was given based on what was in the checking account at that time. Now that we've recreated 13, we've recreated 14, everything has followed through. The transfers that were approved at town meeting, all of that now has settled and been in balance. Roselli and Clark has verified it, it is the 95,000.
And that would make sense to me, because that often happens in towns where transfers between the general fund and stabilization are voted at town meeting, but they may not be recorded. You know, a transfer of the actual cash may not have been made, and then the journal entry itself may not have been, but that would go along with what was happening in the ledger, so.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, do you have an estimated date as to when you would like the pro forma recap sheet done?
Can you just identify yourself first, please?
Hi, Sue Byrne.
Thanks, Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, we've talked for 15 years.
Yeah.
I am, for anybody who doesn't know, I am the city assessor in Gardner. I also do Phillipston, and only I do come back here to help Luann with the interim and with her, her new growth and that stuff.
So what I would say to that, and what we tell all our cities and towns, is once you've had your town meeting, there's really no reason that data can't start being entered into the tax rate recap, and you don't have to do it in the pro forma, to start doing it in the regular recap, and put in as much information as you know right now. If you know what your budgeted local receipts are, go ahead and put that in. Put your actuals in if you have that for 17, which you probably aren't wrapped up with that yet, but you can put all your town meeting votes in. You can even put in what you anticipate voting at a fall town meeting, subject to, a review of that after the fact. But you can enter as much of that information in Gateway in the tax rate recap now. There's no need to wait.
I guess what I was asking was, how much time do you need to look over the pro forma before Kelly and Luann can continue on with
I can tell you that based on my meeting with Tony Roselli and Carter, and one of the reasons I wanted to have that meeting was to look at what revenue estimates were and what was kind of going on and whether things seemed reasonable. So my review will take a very short amount of time, because I've basically already done it.
And we made one or two of those
Yep.
adjustments that you
Good.
asked of us at that meeting.
Yep,
Thank you,
you'll be
Sue.
in good shape, Sue.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question for Deb. The advisory committee basically looked at the revenue projections and thought they were very much on the positive side, rather than very aggressive. We suggested a more conservative approach, especially when there is a budget that was passed of $100,000 that they anticipate on getting that from the ambulance reserve receipt later in the year. We didn't think that was quite prudent, but we understand that you did approve that. Is that correct?
No, what I said was you can't, you shouldn't be voting from ambulance receipts reserved until they're in hand.
So
At the
going in
time
with
of the vote,
we were very uncomfortable
Yeah.
about having a $100,000 deficit
Yeah,
and then try to make it up later on, because
yeah, you can't.
that's,
So what I emphasized to Carter, and Mr. Roselli agreed, is according to Mass General Law, you should not be voting from receipts that aren't in hand yet.
that's what we thought also.
Yeah, so,
So I just want to
So
let you
I
know
did-
that we do have
Yeah.
the budget that was passed at town meeting. It's got
That's
$100,000.
because of the difference between the ambulance receipts
Yes.
reserve. So you'll have to,
It'll be
you will
appropriated
have
at the
free
fall.
cash, you'll have to figure that out, that will be a management decision.
Mhm.
My job when I looked at those revenue estimates was to, make sure that they were explainable and had a basis in fact, and that they weren't, overestimated. Whether or not you choose to budget to that extent is a management decision in town. To the extent that you reduce your revenue estimates, you'll also have to reduce your spending.
Yes.
So, but that's all a management decision.
As advisory, we tend to take and be more on a conservative side than what the projections were.
Yeah, that's an internal decision that you guys have to come to agreement on.
Absolutely, thanks, Deb. Yes,
I just wanted to address that $100,000 that he's talking about. We did exactly as you had requested, that we did not appropriate any other than what we had right now. We already have 75,000 of that additional 100 that we need, so we'll be able to appropriate that from the ambulance receipts in the fall town meeting to cover that 100,000, so it will be fine.
so you can say that again, so there's already $75,000 in
Right.
there.
Right.
And it's not even where we are
But
today.
at the
I got
time
you.
of the town meeting, we didn't have that,
I got you,
so.
thank you. Anybody else have anything else? Diane? Doug? Cameron? Set?
All set.
I mean, I can't speak for the entire board, I'll speak for myself, I'm definitely, excited, I mean, Zach, it was great meeting with you. And obviously, we're gonna utilize as much as we can, this is a great opportunity for Templeton to move forward. And I think, at the end of the day, utilizing the assistance of DLS and the DOR, I think it's great, we're gonna enhance our capabilities of moving forward, financially and economical state, have some type of sustainability, going forward. Cause right now, looking at the future, if we don't do something, like you said, pretty drastic, we need to, then we're not gonna be where we need to be. And I think utilizing your resources, I think is gonna be great. This workshop thing is, for best practices, I think is a great opportunity for not just us as selectmen to learn something, about the DE1 and the cash sheets and how things are supposed to be done. Ultimately, because we're ultimately responsible. I mean, this board is ultimately responsible for the financial state of the community, so I take that very seriously. I think we all take that very seriously. And I think at the end of the day, we wanna know as much as we need to in order to make the right decisions for the right reasons for the town of Templeton. So I really appreciate you coming here. Yes?
John, I have one question, about combining the town administrator between Winchendon and Templeton.
Well, can we talk about that at another date?
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Sure, fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's
Do
fine.
you guys wanna answer any questions on that at this point with the DLS here? What's your question?
I was just wondering, do you think it's gonna be, feasible for them to handle both Templeton and Winchendon?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let the subcommittee do their job
Okay,
first.
all right.
And once they come back to us with their information, then we can make that determination, okay?
Very
Does that sound good? All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the advisory committee? Anything? Nothing? Senator, would you like to say, yes?
I just wanted to say one thing. I have worked extremely hard since I've started here to complete the financials, get us to the point where we are right now. And this is my plea from the advisory board and the select board, that the infighting has to stop. Our town is never going to move forward until this stops. We've got to start working together as a team, and it's very disheartening every day to come to work under these circumstances. And I just wanted you to know that, because it doesn't just affect me, it affects all of the town employees. And we have got to stop looking back. These people made these mistakes, this happened, we've got to move forward. And I just needed to say that.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Senator, you wanna say a few words?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the folks from DOR. I've had an opportunity to work with them many different times, and you've got a good group of folks here, and they are very sincere about giving their help, and they will do that, and they will be extremely helpful. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone. because they will answer it, and they will be there to help you, and you have questions, because sometimes when you leave a meeting, things say, oh geez, I should have thought about asking that, I should have asked that. They're there. These are good folks. I've worked a long time with Sean and MJ, Zach and Deb, not quite as much, but MJ and Sean for a very long time. And whatever that I can do, whatever Representative Whips can do moving forward, obviously, it's a tough time for the state. I'm not gonna get into everything. I mean, we're still trying to figure out stuff with our state budget. We have that, and of course, the new marijuana law that's going into effect that we don't even know where that's going and how that's going to affect a lot of cities and towns. There's a lot of unknowns, and especially a lot of unknowns on the federal level and the effect that that's going to have on the state level too. So we're there to help you the best that we can. I've had the pleasure of working closely with Keith over at Winchendon. And regardless, I know that you're going to have a subcommittee doing things, but I can tell you that it's been a pleasure working with Keith and the amount of time that I've represented Winchendon as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything else to add before we close?
No, just, I'm not gonna, say anything about what was just said, but what I can tell you, well, I guess I am gonna say something. What I can tell you from my own personal experience is everybody's got a role to play, all right? But you gotta work together. And then when I spoke in Winchendon a couple years ago, it was more of a school, town issue. The community that I worked in, we worked as hard as we could to make sure that there was none of this, and rather that we all work together. So we can provide the resources we have at DLS for training, for answering questions, hopefully provide, if our community compact program is funded again, we'll have another round of money that we'll be able to provide for that. But when you're in a situation like this, the best way out is to everybody work collaboratively to make it work. So we're here to help on the policy end, what you should be doing, and the training end. I think it would be great, to have Deb and her team come and walk through what's the recap.
Right.
You might fall asleep once or twice, but.
I make it interesting.
I think the overlays confused me a little bit, but.
It will be worth your time, just to
Understood.
see how everything hangs together, because, having done it for many years, it's like, yeah, this is easy, but, the first couple times through, there's so many hanging pieces there that you gotta really pull them all together to see and what the end result is in terms of a tax rate,
Understood.
Yeah.
Great.
And when we do that, we really try to get, the Finance Advisory Committee, the Select Board, any town finance officials that wanna be here, and it really is valuable.
Great. Well, I'll probably expect a phone call.
Perfect, great.
Great. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I see none. Joy?
Yes.
Kim? Yes. Diane? Doug? Yes. And the chair votes yes as well. Thank you all for coming. Vice Wood, thank you for coming.